Hey there. This week I was talking with Gord Vickman, who is the podcast manager for Strategic Coach, and he's got over 10 years of morning radio hosting experience in a major market. And we were talking about podcasting tips and tricks. Over my 330 plus episodes now, this is my fourth year. I've had quite a few people say because of my podcast, they started their own. And I've had a lot of people coming to me asking me how to start a podcast and what should they do. So I decided to bring on Gord Vickman. Gord really helped me at the beginning stage of my podcasting career, lack of a better term, with a lot of good insights and recommendations. And that's why I decided to bring him on to share with you who, if you're listening and you have a podcast and you want to do better, improve, or you're thinking of one, take a look at have a good listen of what he says. And I'm just going to summarize here. And there's a few things that Gord shared on this episode that he didn't share with me at the beginning, but I kind of rolled into it on my own. It was a great validation that I'm on the right track. Am I perfect? Nope, not even close. Am I going to get better on the next one? For sure. And this is where I've always stick with my clients. It's all about refinement, rinse and repeat. And he made a good point is to always reflect back on your last episode. What do you sense that could have been better or clearer or whatnot? And you work it on the next one. So a few things I think is very key to understand here. The majority, like he said, the majority of the podcasts that are out there are not active, or they've only got a few episodes, or they're really not doing anything. But the one metric or stat that he said, where 90% of the audience are tied to listening to the top charters most of the time. So you, in a way, there's no point trying to compete with that, is the lesson I got from it. And so therefore you do have to compete for the audience's attention, but don't try to do what all the big people are doing. He called them unicorns. They happen once every thousands of other podcasts that are out there. So these are a lot of unicorns, so they can try that. But it may not work for you was also his point. So niching down, if you're doing this for a business purpose or even for a personal business, niche it down to one avatar, to one audience person type. And you won't get the millions or hundreds of thousands of downloads and listeners, but if you get a consistent listenership, if that's a word, and you do a gradual growth, that's a really good thing, especially if you're niching right down into one specific part of your industry or your passion. There's not millions and millions or billions of people out there for that niche. For my case with the podcast, when I started getting 200-300 regular downloads, at first I thought that was kind of low, but in the end, like 200-300 people are regularly listening to this podcast. Now think of my niche. I'm talking to the growth mindset ADHD entrepreneur. That's who I'm focusing my conversation, which is in a way is me. I'm trying to learn more about the high achieving part with ADHD. There's not a lot out there. And that's what I'm going for. Now, there's a lot of other people doesn't fit that avatar listening to it. I've been told that people who work for people with entrepreneurs with ADHD are learning a lot, or even their spouses or their kids. So there's a lot of people that can learn from what you're doing, even if you're niching down to the one thing. Because if you got a lot of open-minded people, which are the people I'm trying to draw to my podcast, is that even though it might not be related to me or to my growth, maybe something unrelated to what they're doing and that works for them might apply to me. That's what I like about the podcast and talking to various people, is to learn different ways of seeing things. I may not agree with it, or at least I may not agree with it, but I will think about it and give it a possibility that it might work for me. But if it doesn't, I say it doesn't and move on. But at least I was open to an alternative idea or point of view. And that's what I really like about my podcast. And those are the podcasts that I listen to. It's all about being open-minded. Niching down. And then the biggest thing is to remember Podcasting marketing, how to reach audiences. One size does not fit all. A scripted process or procedure does not work for everyone. You can learn, take different ideas, amalgamate it to something that'll work for you. Because I'll tell you one thing, I'm breaking a lot of marketing rules, quote unquote marketing rules, but it's working. I'm getting my audience out there. I'm going on other podcasts as a guest to share my story, to talk about my expertise that I'm developing a reputation for. Now, in that audience of the podcast I went at, there are some people in there that will want to listen to what I have to say. So I talk to other entrepreneurial type of podcasts, mental health podcasts, even other ADHD podcasts. Try to find an audience that you will have some audience in there. So, like my marketing consultant told me, is to go listen to some of these big people like Richard Branson or Branson and a couple other big names. And like, why the hell would I, target that audience? He goes, well, they're entrepreneurs. Probably a lot of them have ADHD. So try to target that audience as well. And how do you do that? So there's different ways of doing it. And ultimately, do it how you want to. You don't have to piss away a lot of money. You don't have to throw a lot of money on it. If you have the money, it's great. I'm not saying don't do it. But if you don't have it, don't feel bad that you don't have it. I just wanted a gradual, slow growth like I did with my first engineering company. Have the right people listen, have the right people follow, and grow up from there. And the metrics, make sure that it's not, eating away at your self-confidence and preventing you from doing more. And the one thing that he did say was, a lot of podcasts don't get past episode 1, and the average, I believe, is 16. And then those week, that's it. They're done. But they're still on the podcasting. They're still out there in the ether. And that's part of the 4 or 5 million he was referring to. So it doesn't matter. Who cares about the metrics? If you want to do this personally, if you got a purpose and you want something out of it, not to make millions to be rich quick, because that's not what it is. Do it. But if it doesn't feel right and it's not comfortable, there's no point doing it just because everyone's doing it. Because based on that stat, everyone's doing it, but only 1 to 16 episodes. So I really hope, yeah. And the one last note is you got to keep it entertaining to somehow, not to do things that you don't want to do or that's not natural to you, but it still has to be entertaining to the listener for them to come back over and over again. And that's how you interact with the guests. That's how you interact with the listeners if you're doing solo episodes. So for you, I hope I'm really entertaining you, but at the same time, my goal, my entertainment is actually learning new things. I learn new things, you learn new things. And that's the purpose of my podcast, is to learn more and more as much as I can so I can do continual refinement on myself, my business, my mental health, and everyone around me. So let me know what you thought of Gord's interview. You can email me at André@theimpulsivethinker.com. And again, thanks again for learning with me, and we'll talk to you soon.